anywhere new? Perhaps you've hit a plateau that has you asking, is this it? Have you accomplished all you've set out to do in life and are not feeling as fulfilled as you thought you would? It is normal at midlife to reassess what's working for you and what's not. It's also normal to want to reclaim your time, your energy, and your joy. Let's make the best out of the second half of our lives by having more fun, experiencing more peace, and feeling more joy. If any of this resonates with you, then this podcast is for you. I'm Megan Bayless Bartley. Now let's get ready to shift our shit.
Hello there, and welcome back to episode 4. This is part 2 with Kim Hamilton. We are meeting the therapist at the Mindfulness Center, and today we're meeting Kim. And Kim, in this part 2, we would like to know, do therapists get their own therapy?
I do get my own therapy. As I said in the part 1, it's kind of how I realized I wanted to be a therapist, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I bet that's true for a lot of therapists. Is like they're in therapy and there's like, hey, this is awesome. I could do this, right?
Yeah. I probably started going to therapy maybe around 10 years ago or so.
Yeah.
It's just what I know now is that I've always dealt with some anxiety.
Yes. Okay.
And just didn't know what it was, right?
Right. Yep.
I was just the perfectionist who everything had to be right all the time and didn't always do well when it didn't. And so,
yes.
But over time, that really started to affect my relationships and everything. So I was like, well, maybe I'll go try to figure this out.
Yeah.
And that eventually led into, some couples therapy with my then husband and, so kind of off and on individual couples throughout the last 10 years and then more regularly the last 5 years.
Yeah.
So,
what would you say was like super helpful? Because I feel like, I hear a lot about people, who are maybe type A and really perfectionistic oriented. Was there like any sort of aha moment or anything either the therapist said or you read or something that you were just like, you know what, this really isn't working for me anymore?
I don't really, it wasn't necessarily like something someone said or a therapist. I think it was just more me just getting to the end of my rope per se, that like, okay, this is no longer serving me well and I just can't do this anymore,
Right.
I need to figure this out or else I don't know what will happen. So
right. That must have been scary.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, when you start to realize how it's affecting your relationships with other people that you really love and care about, it kind of gets you.
Yes. Yeah. Going. This resonates for me because I like to call myself a recovering perfectionist, and that now I can be perfectly imperfect and actually allow myself sometimes to like not finish things fully or like to be okay with it being at 70% or 80% good enough, right? That idea of like, can I be just good enough, right? For myself too,
Yeah, for sure. And obviously I still deal with it on things. I was kind of laughing at myself yesterday because I had a client, a young child who, I do play therapy, and up in there, it's like, this is your space. You can do whatever you want. This is all yours to do whatever you want with, But then they start like messing with something, and I'm like, oh no, that's not how they're supposed to do that, And I'm like, it's okay.
Yes,
like,
it'll be fine.
If they tear that paper fake money in half, it's okay. I'll just go to the dollar store and get more, right?
Right. Well, and that's a good question to say, tell me about, like, why were you tearing money in half? Does that, does that mean something or not? They just like the sound of paper tearing. Who knows,
Who knows? But so I still see it, pop up its head in ways. And
Yes, absolutely. That's why it's like
But-
you're recovering perfectionist, right? It's
Exactly.
like it's always sort of there.
Right.
It's just if you're actively in it
Right.
or not.
Yeah, because at one point in time, I'd have totally been not okay with it, and would have like had to have them stop and do a whole thing, and and now it's
Right.
just like I was able to be like, okay, that's freaking me out a little bit, but it's not a big deal. Move
Yes.
on.
And it's about you. It's not about the kid, right?
Yeah.
Like that's something
It's
I
how
had
do
to learn.
I
It's like,
respond? Yes.
yes,
About my
it's like,
response to it.
yes, absolutely.
Yeah, I tell
Mhm.
people all the time, even my kids, I'm like, you can't control other people, but you can control how you respond to them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And that's kind of the faux, thing with perfectionism is this idea that you actually have control, right? If you have
Mhm.
everything in its place or things are all, whatever your type of perfectionism is, it's an interesting thing of like, why is there that need for that amount of rigid control,
Mhm.
right? Versus I like
Yep.
a sort of flexible structure, but like that's
Mhm.
what I kind of go for with my clients is, how do we have a structure that feels contained or kind of,
Mhm.
you kind of maybe know things, because I think a lot of people deal with the fear of the unknown of like
For
what's
sure.
going to happen. So if I have
Mhm.
control over certain things, I at least know,
Mhm.
this is how
Yeah.
I can expect things to be or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. But then having that, but still being okay when it doesn't go exactly as planned.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. I talk about, especially in couples work, of like, and everybody feels like they can resonate with this. It's like usually there's that person in the relationship who really likes the dishwasher loaded a certain way, right?
Oh,
That there's,
yep. Uh-huh.
and that they're going to be like, look, you're not loading the dishwasher the right
Mhm.
way, which of course was
Yep.
I was there. I was that person. And my husband's like, the dishes are getting clean. Do you want me to do this or do you not? And
Right.
that's what people don't understand with that perfectionism and the over functioning is that if
Mhm.
you're over functioning in that perfectionist realm,
Mhm.
usually to manage your own anxiety, it's going to cause the people around you to underfunction because they can't do it good enough. They can't do it to your
Mhm.
overly high standard. It's fine to have high standards, but when we're like, I look at the dishwasher stuff and I'm like, yeah, I mean, if it gets in there, like even now when my kids load the dishwasher, I'm like, not gonna say anything, just gonna let them do it.
Walk
And
away. I'm
don't,
gonna walk away.
yeah. And then when they're like, man, those dishes didn't get clean, and I'll be like, how do you
I
think
wonder
that
why.
happened? Let's brainstorm this. What could we try different? Like,
Yeah.
but it's hard to let go of that sometimes.
Yeah. But anyway, so I did I've worked on that a lot. I also have done some work on emotional eating and my relationship with food, and through that have also looked into and practiced all sorts of other things like Reiki and
Awesome.
mediums and Akashic record
Uh-huh.
reading and all sorts of fun and
Yep.
interesting things that some people
Yeah.
are probably like, I don't know about that. But for me, it was a really important part to my journey.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and I think, everybody's got their own thing. Like, this, we kind of like to think of this as our judgment-free zone about, what if, all of this does, give you more information or gives you hope or gives you, like, does it matter? Maybe it's real. Maybe I'm a super hardcore skeptical, even in
Yeah.
all the things that I know and have experienced from a, sensitivity point of view, I still am like, was that just all in my head or was I making that up or whatever? But then you're just sort of like, I don't know. Like, it's hard to deny that.
Yeah. Well, and even if it's not, like, it doesn't make you feel better, you know?
Exactly.
So,
Exactly. Right. And I think that's true even, for people who are, we call it religious or spiritual, of like if they're in a religious, belief system that helps them understand life and living, and that feels comforting to them. And if you're not in that religious, system, do you have a right to say whether it's right or wrong, or is it just is what it is, and you let people do what's best for them?
right. Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure.
very cool.
Yeah.
So how, when you, I'm curious about like with the Reiki and stuff, like how do you feel when you experience that? How was that helpful in like maybe different from like the talk therapy? Because like we had Britt on, and Britt talked about like somatic experiencing, and how that's maybe a little bit more different than just talk therapy. And I think that's something interesting that the Mindfulness Center does is,
Sure.
we all have our different experiences and different trainings and different interests that kind of blend more than just talking. And sometimes maybe talking isn't enough. Maybe there's more that needs to be done.
Yeah, for sure. So like, it's like you can only talk so much, but our bodies hold so much inside that just talking about them isn't necessarily gonna help release it. Like,
Yes.
it's always interested me. So many people who have anxiety, for instance, like they'll always be like, "I feel it in my chest." Like they get a
Yep.
tightness in their chest, or something like that, and it's like
Right.
it's
It
hard.
shows
How do
up
you
in
get
their
rid of
body.
that?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah. So with the Reiki, it's really helpful to kind of release those negative energies and bring in positive
Yes.
energies, and
Yes.
replace them. And even understanding why certain areas of your body like can affect you. I had
Yep.
a thing once where they were like, you need to think about your throat chakra. And I was like, okay. So I kind of did some research on that, and talk about how to open your throat chakra and what having a closed throat chakra will. And it's like, oh, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
I was at a time where I really needed to stand up for myself and speak up for myself, and not
Right.
stay quiet about things. And
Yep.
so by concentrating specifically on that area, it
Yes.
was really helpful.
Yeah, I find it all so fascinating myself, and especially, and then like thinking of like acupuncture and how all the meridians, and how that whole point of acupuncture is sort of opening up the meridians so all that can can flow. I think it's interesting, to and like how old, like those are old, whatever you want to call them, belief systems or healing practices or whatever, that's like been around forever. So, it's kind of the both and stuff of like how it's the complementary of how do we complement all the technology we have now with surgeries and medicine and all this stuff, with also how bodies hold on to certain emotions or energies or all that stuff. I'm really fascinated, again, super skeptical about the whole past life stuff, but I'm always like,
but it's like this super interesting if it's true.
And then you're like, this doesn't make any sense to me in this lifetime, and I have someone I work with that is always like, you don't know your past lives? And I'm like, no, like, do you? And she's like, I know all of my past lives. I'm like, what? I'm like, teach me how to do that. Like, because if it's possible for me to know, I'd like to know, like, just for more information, right? Like this idea of like more information. Again, super skeptical of like, is this a real thing or not? I have no idea. I don't have proof, let's say, but it's one of those things where it's like, there's a lot of things in life that we don't have proof of, that it's, I think especially of like feelings, we feel love, or we feel disgust, or we feel hate, or we feel these feelings, but we can't pinpoint that's love, that's hate, this is where it comes from, this is the scientific whatever of those feelings.
We just know it. Yeah.
Exactly. There's a knowing. Yes. And so I think that's why I love the Ericksonian hypnosis. To me, like having, now I'm a Reiki master, working towards my certification in the hypnosis, is like this blending of like belief systems and intentionality, and how our thoughts have so much power, and like thoughts we don't even realize we're thinking. Like especially with anxiety, is like there's a whole set of things happening behind the scenes that usually are causing the anxiety of whatever's showing up right here that we don't even know about. So a lot of, we've talked about therapy being a lot about just self-awareness of like, who am I, and how did I get here, and why am I doing this thing that I'm doing, and could I be doing it differently and more effectively or more optimally, right?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah,
it's very interesting.
Very. Yeah.
Anything else that you find interesting about any of your work you've done? Was there ever like, I always like, did you have a therapist who said this one thing that's like stuck with you, or did something or showed up a certain way that you're like, man, that really helped me?
Yeah. Well, I've only ever had one therapist. I've had the same therapist this whole time.
Awesome. So, even better.
Yeah. And so, it's funny, me and this other woman that's in my emotional eating group are always just like, we just do what Margie says. If Margie says we should do it, we'll just go do it, right? So maybe it's not the healthiest thing, I don't know, but
well, there's a level of trust that people trust her. Yeah.
And obviously it's all things she's done herself and I found helpful. So
yes.
Yeah, and it's like I'm always up for trying something new, right? It's like, like, why are you gonna keep sitting doing the same thing you've always done and not seeing results? When okay, well, I'll try this thing. It might seem a little kooky or different or uncomfortable, but if it'll help me, then I'll at least try it, right?
Sure. So absolutely.
And some things, I leave and I'm like, wow, that was amazing. And other things I'm like, that wasn't, whatever. I don't need to do that again, right? So
right. Well, I think different things work differently for different people.
Yeah, exactly. Like everyone's going to have their own thing that they need in order to heal and better themselves and move forward. Yeah.
Well, anything else you want to share with us before we wrap up? I've loved having you on. We would love to have you back. I'd love to hear more about kids and families and all sorts of like how to have a harmonious family tone of the house, right?
Yeah. Yeah. It's hard. It can be hard. And you just have to be patient with it, right? And not immediate,
probably
overnight.
riding that wave of when it's not going well, it's just being like, okay, how do we get this back on track, or how do we just ride this wave until it does get back on track, not having to necessarily control it too rigidly.
Exactly. And being okay when it does, because a lot of times it'll get worse before it gets better.
Interesting. Yeah Kind of have to like pop the pimple and have it all be gross and oozy.
Yes. Yeah. So just being patient and trusting the process.
Yes. Being patient, trusting the process, and knowing that it is a process, right? Like that it takes time. It's not like it's like, you're going to go,
Yeah. I mean, I wish I was a miracle worker. That would be awesome.
Yes.
I would love for everyone to just come in my office and I can like be poof and
exactly. I feel like we're all of us all of us at the Mindfulness Center. That's our goal, is like, how do I become the miracle worker?
Right.
But it's not, maybe it's part of the process. Is that it needs to be a process. Maybe it doesn't need to be so easy to just flip a switch and have it be different.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much Yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, go ahead.
Tell us.
I was
No,
just
you
gonna
go.
say one of the things I like to ask new clients particularly is the miracle question. If you were to wake up tomorrow morning and a miracle happened while you were sleeping and all your problems were gone, what would that look like? Just do some
Yes.
thinking about what that would look like. Like, it's not
Yes.
gonna happen. Be nice if it did, but
100%.
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I love the miracle question. Very solution focused. We like
Mhm.
solutions. We like helping
Yes.
people find
Yes.
solutions that work best for them and their
Mhm.
families. Awesome. Well, thank you so much for joining us. We
welcome.
hope to have you back if you're interested in
Okay.
checking out Kim and what she has to offer. She does offer a free 10-minute consult on our website, mindfulness-center.com. And we will definitely have Kim back to find out more about all the interesting things that she has to offer. Thanks so much, Kim.
Thank you.